Do you remember back when college football was simpler? We didn't have these committees in their star chambers deciding who would get a chance to play where. We didn't have these overlarge conferences with teams flying across the country to play teams that they have no history with. We didn't have conference championship games that could overturn part of the regular season. And it was just a different time. And Pepperidge Farm, well, not Pepperidge Farms, but Consensus College Football Rankings remembers. And so what we did is we took the records of every team today and put them into displays showing what that would look like in the conference alignments from a time before conference championship games and conferences of more than 10 teams, back when things made sense geographically and teams had relationships with each other that had lasted for years and years and years. And college football had a lot more of the tradition that made it great intact, and things made a lot more sense. So we're going to look at that today, and I hope that will be uh, something edifying for you. So let's start with the Big West Conference, which actually had three more teams than what we show here, but three of those teams no longer play football. And of course, the members that you see here have gone on to other conferences. Some have gone through two or three or four conferences. But the winner would have been UNLV, and they would be headed off, I believe, to the Freedom Bowl. If we look at some of the other conferences here, uh, we the ACC, Virginia would still be the conference winner, I think, uh, because they have the fewest losses. But it might be based on the most wins, which would put Duke as the conference champion, if that's the way that it was that the rules were at that time. Another defunct conference would be the Big East. That was won numerous times by Miami, and would have been with today's Miami team, with the record that they have, would also have been atop the Big East in 1991. Of course, that original 1991 Miami Hurricanes team won the national championship and went undefeated. So they would have been atop that as well. But the Big East Conference had just started and actually did not name a conference champion for their first 2 years in 91 and 92. Another conference that doesn't exist anymore is the WAC. The Western Athletic Conference would have had two very strong teams in BYU, who would have come out on top as the champion with 7 wins and 1 loss and 1 tie. We do count overtime games as ties for this exercise. And Utah would be at 7-2, but both would have 10 wins overall and have very good seasons. Another conference that does not exist anymore is the Southwest Conference, with Texas Tech and Texas A&M on top out there. Now, because of the modern incarnations of those two teams are in different conferences with different numbers of conference games, we give the nod here to Texas Tech because they have more wins. But obviously, had they actually both been in the same conference at that time, they would have the same number of games, and so could have been in a co-champion scenario in that case. Looking at independents, there's a lot of independents that that used to exist in college football and no more. In the just about the only one that still exists is around is Notre Dame from back then. There's a couple of other teams that are I think UConn is actually the only other independent that is playing this season. So independents are pretty rare, except for there's always a Notre Dame exception. Other conferences one that's going through a metamorphosis and rebirth, that's their plan anyway, is the Pac-10 or Pac-12. Who knows what number they'll settle on when they get all their other teams, but they've got the Pac-12 branding. Had the current teams gone back to 1991 settings, Oregon would be the champion, and they would be headed off to the Rose Bowl and be to face a team from the Big Ten, which the Big Ten would be, their representative would be, I'm guessing it would be Indiana. It could be Ohio State. They're the co-champions, but Indiana has certainly had a much longer drought since they had gone to the Rose Bowl. Incidentally, the actual 1991 Indiana Hoosiers, that is the last Hoosier football team to win a bowl game. So they'll be looking to change their postseason luck this year. Of course, first they've got to face Ohio State in that conference championship game coming up, but we'll see how all that goes. But in 1991, they wouldn't have had to face that. Both the Hoosiers and Buckeyes would be 12-0, and both would be no doubt be playing somewhere on New Year's Day. We would also have to look at the MAC, the Mid-America Conference. Western Michigan would be the champion with the 2025 record placed in 1991, edging out Ohio and Toledo. We also have the Big 8 Conference, which would have been won by Oklahoma with their 10-2 record, Missouri being the second place team in the conference, and that would have gotten the Sooners a berth in the Orange Bowl. And, of course, the last conference we want to look at is the Southeastern Conference. Would have Ole Miss and Alabama tied as for the conference co-champions. Ole Miss would have one loss to Alabama's two losses, but only one of those losses for the Tide would have been in conference. So they would have the same conference record, edging out Georgia, who would have been credited with a tie with Tennessee. And one of those teams would be going to the Sugar Bowl. No doubt all three, Ole Miss, Alabama, and the Bulldogs, would be playing on New Year's Day. And Vanderbilt, as everybody recognizes, this is one of their best seasons ever. Since probably before World War I, it's about as good as they've ever had it. So that's where the Southeast Conference would be. And then if we look at the entire big picture from the consensus college football rankings, which take the weekly reports of each official NCAA selector and put them into one consensus top 25, the national champion for the regular season national champion would be the Ohio State Buckeyes. And they have been on the top of the rankings, just about everybody's rankings, for since close to the beginning of the season. Something else I'll note is that the James Madison Dukes and the North Texas Mean Green are not in any of these rankings because they weren't in what was the 1A division at that time and is now the FBS division. They were 1AA, but they would have been hosting first-round games in the 1AA playoffs back in 1991 with the records that they have from this year. And both of those teams did play often in the playoffs for Division I AA when that was their division. So that's what the 2025 season would look like if college football still operated in a world with reasonably sized and geographically sane conferences and no conference championship games. We will try to look at potential a potential bowl schedule and get that out to you in the next day or two. We'll see you then.